I really wish that the title of the video was clickbait, but unfortunately, and I know I'm smiling, but there's nothing to smile about. Unfortunately, I nearly killed the engine, or potentially I have killed the engine. I don't actually know yet. So, at the end of last video, you would have seen a couple of issues. That's low oil. That's a low oil. No oil pressure. And today I have drained the oil and removed the oil filter. So let's have a look what what we have. Ignore the dirty oil that's at the bottom of this tray. But this is all that I have drained, which is probably less than half a litre. And this engine takes like 4.5, 5. Not a lot. But I haven't seen any metal specs or anything like that, so it does look promising. Well, the filter is apart, and it does look good in some respects, and not so good in others. So this oil filter must be over 20 years old. The good news is that I don't really see any metal. The bad thing is that, well, the filter is it's collapsed essentially. But there's no metal. All this looks good. It just the oil has turned into sludge. The oil filter itself is rather rusty, but that's Micro Japan Filter Corporation, made in Japan. That has got potentially a genuine part number, a Nissan part number. And just check this out. That's the sludge. Literally so bad. But that's the good news, I suppose. The engine should be fine. Like I say, I haven't run it that long with no oil pressure. I think it might have been 10-15 seconds. I think looking at the oil filter, it's giving me indications that the sump might be in the same state, and maybe that's the reason why so little oil drained out, which is still quite bad. But it's good to see the filter is clean from metal. Obviously it's not clean, but it's clean from metal. So I will drop the sump in future, inspect the inside of it, clean it, and reseal it, because I think it's leaking anyway. But for now, I just want to get the car running, so let's get to that. So I only have about 2 hours of light, and also it's not raining. There's a forecast of rain for later on. There was no forecast of planes flying above me and ruining my sound. One of the things that I have shown previously was bad ignition lock, and I got one. It's not quite S13, but it's brand new, and it's got 2 keys, and it looks very similar to what it needs to be for S13. And it's actually of a Navara D21. And if that's wrong, I will put a caption underneath. But it's off AliExpress for $19.99, which is 5 times cheaper than the cheapest used ignition lock I could find. So hopefully I can make it work. From all the research I've done, it should work fine, or be very close to being fine. So let's get that sorted out. Well, that wasn't too bad. Right, we're getting somewhere. I am contemplating on just smashing this aluminium because it's got hidden nuts and it's just going to be easier for me to just break that and forget about it, because there's nothing salvageable about this unit. I'm going to try to be strategic about it. We'll see how it goes. I'm actually not sure what has filmed and what not, because the camera seems to have switched itself off. But I managed to get this piece of aluminium engineering stuff removed. Now is the case of fitting this lock. I need to double check if this is the same as here, which I shall do now. Looks the same. Do we have a problem? We actually do have a massive problem. The lock is in completely different position. Am I fitting it wrong? It doesn't look like it's in the wrong position, but it's hitting. And the slight issue is that this release button is hitting the dashboard. So I think the angle of this is ever so slightly different to the OEM one. But I do have another one of these from a 200SX, but I don't have the key for it. And I should be able to remove this lock and reuse that in the one that I have. But as such, this now works. And I actually have some keys for the car, which is a nice little bonus. It is actually pretty dark under the car as well. Right, so the reason it was leaking oil is actually because I don't know what someone's been doing, but this is insane. So the engine. Someone, 100% not me. So as you can see, there's oil feed there, and that oil feed in from the block doesn't look OEM. So someone has been messing around, putting different adapters, something like that. And that is a bummer, because I'll need to find the original fittings and hope that the threads are good and make sure this oil feed is fine. Yeah, hello there. Just wanted to talk to you. I wanted to tell a story. So after the last clip, me realizing that the oil feed was just not connected, I put down the camera, had a look online at diagrams, had a look online at what's for sale, had a look at the spare turbo, and realized I'm missing the oil supply. And I realized I'm missing one of the coolant lines and loads of fittings. Well, that's a problem, because to get the car running and driving, I need those fittings. That's a huge problem. But hang on, there's a solution to every problem. Facebook Marketplace. I found this kit 2 hours away from my house, messaged the guy, and he was like, yep, you can collect anytime tonight. Come and get it. So I drove 2 hours one way, and it took 2.5 hours because the weather was ridiculous. And picked up this kit. It's nothing ridiculously good. It comes with a bunch of new gaskets. It's a Mamba kit made in Taiwan. S13, S14, S15 low mount, T25 button, ball bearing, turbo oil, and waterline kit with oil return pipe kit. And that means I have to get the turbo off. Come on! And unfortunately, I have left my microphone in the garage, so you won't hear all of my struggles and all of my complaints about access when removing this turbo. All I can say, it was not much fun. Surprisingly, as much as spacious the engine bay is, the access to stuff is not that easy. It seems to be very compact and cramped around engine, but I got there in the end, and that's all that matters. I honestly don't know how this is meant to be disassembled when it's all on the car. I ended up removing it with the manifold because I couldn't get to these two back bolts for the turbo to be removed from the manifold. And I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to be putting it back together on the car as well. Probably the same way I've removed it. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if you'll be able to see how much it moves. It's all covered in dirt here. A lot of dirt in there. I think at this point it just makes sense to just replace it or rebuild it, one of the two. I don't know if I'll be able to get a rebuild kit for this. AR48. We shall see. Now that the turbo's out and it got dark outside, it's the weekend, and as I've shown in the beginning of the video, I still had a slight issue with the ignition lock. So me being me and being really tight and not wanting to pay £100 for a used ignition lock with one key and that's it, I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not paying £100 for ignition lock. So as I mentioned, the Chinese one, it was £20 and importantly had two keys. And that's another thing, I couldn't find any used keys for sale. So what I have done, I've spent probably 3 hours picking apart some locks and I achieved some results. Let me show you. Right, so what do we have here? That is the the new Chinese lock that was something like that. I drilled the little things out and was able to remove this as well as this. And basically that is how the key works, or the locks work. They have various pins like that. They all go inside of here. You put a key in and then they move in different direction. And essentially, if I put one in, they stick out like that. You put the key in and it goes wrong with direction. They stick out like that. You put the key in and then you go boom like that, flush, and then you can turn it. So this is the S13 one. It's pretty much the same design. However, there's no however. I was going to use the Navarro one, but as you can see, it is completely different. But with enough of these, a lot of patience and a lot of time, I have taken apart the lock, the spare lock I had on a spare steering column, using the Chinese key and all these spare pins. that's the start. Turn it back, press this thing, voila. I have a fully working S13 steering lock and 2 keys. I will order more of these spins and actually change my boot lock and the door locks to match these keys, and it's going to cost me about £30 to have a full set of locks and keys. So like I say, I spent like 3 hours trying to figure all this out. At one point I was like, this is not going to work. But was it worth it? Hell yeah. I'm not spending £100 or £200 on a set of locks for an old Nissan. Let's get started. Remove the turbo off the S13 because it's full of dirt, full of oil, and there's excessive movement in the shaft, and it's left to right, up and down. I'm guessing some of these things are worn out. Never rebuilt a turbo in my life, never taken one apart. Watched a few YouTube videos, gonna try to rebuild it. How hard can it be? So the first thing I'm gonna do is strip it all down, clean all the parts, lay it all out in order. Obviously I'm gonna film just so that I remember how to put it back together. Let's start. So it's the next day, the turbo is all reassembled. I've got the oil feed and oil drain all in the place. I've got the first part of the downpipe on, obviously the manifold, etc, etc. And now it's time to fit onto the car, and I was going to use these braided coolant lines. However, I just realized they don't really fit, so that's a bit of an annoying thing. So I'm going to have to somehow use the original lines. I think at some point I said I'm missing one, but it turns out I wasn't. It was just tucked out of the way from the turbo. So that's a small win, I suppose. But yeah, I'm going to fit this on now onto the engine, and I'm sure that's going to be fun. That's a tight fit. Something nice. So the turbo is finally all in, plumbed up. So we have the turbos all fitted down. I've lost one little nut there, which I'm going to find. Let's not worry about that. I'm using one of the braided coolant lines. The other one, I think I've binned it now, but it was bent, unfortunately unsavable, but whatever. Apart from that, everything's there. The oil feed now, I don't think I'll have the angle to show, but it's all plumbed up, which is good. So the oil feed is now all connected, which is good to see. The car is obviously still not fully assembled. I'm missing a couple of vacuum lines and stuff like that, but I want to get the car running. Let it run for a bit more than 5 seconds. Well, 30 seconds last time it ran. So let's chug the charged battery in and see what it does. well, good news. The oil pressure seems to be back, which is good news. I couldn't be happy with that. The bad news is that the fuel pressure has disappeared. Um, Something I need to look into, and I now need to wait till the next weekend for some daylight so I can look into the wiring, maybe order a new fuel pump, and hopefully in the next video we can actually get the car running and driving as it should. I feel like I'm literally within short reach of achieving that. There's been a few things that I had to do that I didn't anticipate, like rebuilding the turbo. I didn't really think I'd need to do that. But also at the same time, I think it's good that I have rebuilt it, and hopefully it has given it some extra life for foreseeable future. Definitely didn't enjoy taking the turbo off or putting it back on. One thing I'm really surprised is how much space there is, yet you can get your hands anywhere. it's been a bit of a nightmare, and definitely worked on bigger engines with bigger turbos, and they've been a lot easier to take off. So yeah, what a fun job that was. Not. Anyway, I'm going to end this video on this note. A bit of a cliffhanger. If you want to see the next video, perhaps consider clicking that subscribe button. If you like the video, click that thumbs up button, and I shall see you in the next one.